Russian President Vladimir Putin faces an unprecedented challenge. With NATO meeting in Ankara this week, the world watches. Putin's position is more precarious than ever before, his war in Ukraine now in its fifth year. The conflict strains the Russian economy and drives down his poll ratings. Kyiv's relentless long to mid-range bombardments strike deep, causing gas shortages and widespread damage. Even Moscow's skyline now belches black smoke, a stark symbol of the war's cost. This week, the critical question emerges: does a leader with his back to the wall choose to escalate and truly test the alliance, or does he pull back from the brink? The conflict in Ukraine has entered its fifth grueling year. This milestone underscores the long-term commitment and immense cost for all parties. For President Putin, this extended timeline has profound implications. What began as a swift operation has become a protracted struggle, draining resources and testing national resolve. The duration alone presents significant challenges to the Kremlin's strategic objectives and its capacity to sustain the war effort indefinitely. The grinding nature of the conflict reshapes the geopolitical landscape daily, forcing Moscow into difficult calculations about its future path and ongoing commitment. The war's harsh realities now reach deep into Russia itself. Moscow's skyline, once a symbol of stability, frequently belches black smoke. This visible evidence points to ongoing damage and the direct impact of the conflict. Kyiv's long to mid-range bombardments are increasingly effective, disrupting daily life and infrastructure. These strikes are not just symbolic, they are causing tangible gas shortages across affected regions. The Kremlin can no longer insulate its population from the immediate consequences of the protracted conflict, intensifying internal pressure on President Putin's leadership. The economic toll on Russia is severe and escalating. President Putin's war of choice is actively dragging down the Russian economy. Sanctions, coupled with the immense financial demands of the conflict, create a compounding crisis. Industries struggle, investment falters, and long-term growth prospects diminish. The national budget is under increasing strain as military expenditures continue to soar, diverting resources from other vital sectors. This sustained economic pressure directly undermines the Kremlin's ability to project power and maintain domestic stability, contributing to Putin's precarious position. Domestically, President Putin faces a significant challenge: his poll ratings are down. This decline reflects growing public discontent and disillusionment with the ongoing war and its repercussions. The economic hardship, coupled with the increasing visibility of the conflict's costs, resonates deeply with the Russian populace. A leader's domestic approval is a critical factor in their strategic calculus, especially when facing external pressures. Lower poll numbers can limit policy options and embolden dissent, potentially pushing Putin towards unpredictable decisions in an attempt to shore up support. Amidst this turmoil, NATO convenes a crucial meeting in Ankara this week. This gathering serves as a powerful statement of alliance unity and resolve. Member states will undoubtedly discuss the escalating situation in Ukraine and the implications of Moscow's actions. The meeting provides a platform for strategic coordination and a reaffirmation of collective defense commitments. For Putin, the Ankara meeting represents a direct challenge, showcasing a united front that could complicate any adventurous moves. The world watches to see how this high-stakes diplomatic event will influence the Kremlin's next steps. Kyiv's long to mid-range bombardments continue unabated, exerting immense pressure on Russian military and civilian infrastructure. These precise strikes are not random, they target vital assets, contributing directly to the gas shortages and broad damage reported. The ability of Ukrainian forces to strike deep into Russian territory demonstrates a growing strategic capability. This sustained offensive capability forces Russia to divert resources for defense, stretching its military further. The relentless nature of these bombardments is a constant reminder of the war's destructive reach and Kyiv's determination to reclaim territory. The consequences of Kyiv's bombardments extend beyond gas shortages to cause broad damage across affected Russian regions. Critical infrastructure, industrial sites, and urban areas bear the brunt of these strikes. The cumulative effect degrades Russia's capacity to sustain its war effort and impacts civilian life. Reports of widespread destruction underscore the intensity of the conflict and Ukraine's strategic aim to disrupt Russian logistics and morale. This ongoing damage compounds the economic strain already facing the country, further pressuring the Kremlin to reassess its strategy. Gas shortages are a critical outcome of the ongoing long to mid-range bombardments originating from Kyiv. These disruptions threaten energy security and impact daily life for countless citizens. A reliable energy supply is fundamental to both military operations and economic stability. When these supplies are compromised, it creates a cascade of problems, from industrial slowdowns to domestic discomfort. The direct link between Ukrainian strikes and these shortages highlights the effectiveness of Kyiv's strategy to target critical vulnerabilities, adding another layer to Putin's complex challenges. President Putin finds himself at his most precarious position yet. This assessment stems from a confluence of factors: a protracted war, declining public support, and a struggling economy. The visible impact of the conflict on Moscow's skyline, coupled with widespread damage and gas shortages, paints a grim picture. Historically, cornered leaders can become unpredictable, either doubling down on aggression or seeking de-escalation. The current scenario demands a careful balancing act, as any misstep could have catastrophic consequences for Russia and beyond. His back is against the wall, and the world watches his next move. The central question remains: will Putin choose to truly test the NATO alliance? With his position so precarious, the calculus becomes incredibly complex. A test could mean direct provocations, border incursions, or cyber attacks against member states, escalating tensions dramatically. Such a move might be an attempt to project strength, divert domestic attention, or fracture Western unity. However, it also carries immense risks, potentially triggering a robust collective response under Article 5. The decision hinges on whether Putin perceives more benefit in a dangerous gamble than in a strategic retreat. The risk of escalation remains a constant concern as NATO meets. President Putin, facing internal and external pressures, might view a confrontational stance as his only viable option. The idea of going big when cornered is not unheard of in geopolitical strategy. However, challenging NATO directly could unify the alliance further and invite severe repercussions, both military and economic. The decision to escalate would be a gamble with global consequences, potentially transforming the nature of the conflict entirely and placing Russia in even greater isolation. Now into its fifth year, the war's sustained duration highlights Russia's inability to achieve a swift victory. This extended conflict places an immense strain on resources, both human and material. The initial strategic goals appear increasingly distant, replaced by a grueling war of attrition. For the Kremlin, the length of the conflict directly correlates with the erosion of public support and economic stability. The fifth-year mark is not just a calendar notation, it's a stark indicator of mounting internal and external pressures on President Putin's leadership and the nation's capacity to endure. The Russian economy continues its drift, dragged down by the war of choice. Expert analyses confirm a steady decline, impacted by sanctions, capital flight, and the diversion of state resources. This economic deterioration limits the Kremlin's ability to fund its military ambitions and maintain social programs. The lack of a clear end in sight for the conflict means these economic headwinds will persist, potentially worsening over time. Such a sustained financial burden weakens Russia's geopolitical standing and puts further strain on President Putin's ability to govern effectively. The downturn in President Putin's poll ratings signals growing public discontent. This domestic pressure can be a powerful determinant in a leader's strategic choices. A populace weary of war, economic hardship, and visible damage to its cities may become increasingly vocal. While state media controls narratives, the tangible effects of gas shortages and black smoke on the Moscow skyline are harder to ignore. Putin's declining approval could motivate a bold, perhaps risky, move to reassert control and rally support, or alternatively, compel a cautious approach to avoid further alienation. NATO's meeting in Ankara represents a united front against Russian aggression. The alliance's collective resolve is a critical factor in Putin's calculations. Any move to test NATO would be met with a coordinated and robust response, as enshrined in Article 5. The strength of the alliance lies in its mutual defense pact, a formidable deterrent against direct military action. This week's discussions will likely reinforce this commitment, sending a clear message to Moscow. The unity demonstrated by NATO members could influence Putin's decision-making, perhaps even leading to de-escalation. Reports of broad damage across Russian territories directly contradict the Kremlin's narrative of a conflict contained to Ukraine. Kyiv's long to mid-range bombardments are causing significant destruction, affecting key infrastructure and civilian areas. This visible damage, including the black smoke over Moscow, serves as a constant reminder of the war's direct consequences for Russia itself. The need for reconstruction and ongoing repairs drains resources further, adding to the economic burden. This material destruction fuels public dissatisfaction and complicates Putin's strategic options on the battlefield. Putin's dilemma is stark: does he lash out from a position of weakness, or seek to consolidate? His precarious situation, marked by declining polls, economic woes, and a war entering its fifth year, suggests restraint. Yet, the history of authoritarian leaders shows that desperate times can lead to desperate measures. The NATO meeting in Ankara intensifies this pressure, presenting both a potential target for defiance and a strong deterrent. The world is keenly watching which path Russia's president will choose in this high-stakes moment, with global stability hanging in the balance. The NATO meeting in Ankara sends a clear signal to Moscow. It demonstrates the alliance's sustained commitment to its members and to addressing the implications of the Ukraine war. Discussions will likely cover enhanced defense postures and continued support for Kyiv. For President Putin, this coordinated display of strength is a critical input to his decision-making process. The unified message from Ankara could either provoke a defiant reaction or serve as a strong disincentive against further escalation. The strategic dialogue in Turkey directly impacts the evolving dynamic of the conflict. As President Putin grapples with his most precarious position yet, the world remains on edge. His war of choice, now in its fifth year, continues to drag down the Russian economy and his poll ratings. Kyiv's bombardments inflict widespread damage and gas shortages, even coloring Moscow's skyline with black smoke. With NATO meeting in Ankara, the question is not if the alliance is strong, but whether Putin, backed into a corner, will choose the irrational act of testing it directly. The coming days will reveal if a cornered leader bangs his head against the wall, or finds a way to step back from the brink.